To you, Brother Ricky, you've spoken very strongly against the growing influence of false prophets and the corruption that is flooding the church through what you call the doctrine of Pharisees. What do you think needs to be changed in the Christian church in South Africa?
The scary thing, especially when you listen to where the church is today, is that people have taken off their conscious. You know, there are two brains. There are two sections of your brains which are most important. So you have your thinking spot, you know, your conscious area, and then you have your subconscious. Everything that I'm thinking, as I'm speaking like this, you recognize my language. It goes through here. You know what I'm saying. And so this has been put at home. People are going to church with subconscious without this. Nowadays, that's what's happening. This is, okay, let me explain this. From the back here, this is where everything that you know, everything that you've studied, what you like, what colors you think. I was looking through my wardrobe and I noticed that I have a lot of blues and reds. So every single time I'm going to a shop, no matter what I'm looking for, there's going to be a blue that I tend to like. So all of that stuff is recorded here. When you go to church, you go with this and this. Some people are being told when they enter that church, the moment you cross that spot right there, you need to leave this out. Why? Because with this, you have the memory of everything that you are scared of. With this. You know the boogeyman? When you used to sleep, even though if they had the lights off, you could make up, there was an image. I think there's a person there at the corner, right at the corner, right? You could make up why. These were things that were stored in your subconscious. I remember watching a video by Brother Mark Woodman, who I think is passed on, right? About this, about the issue of the brain. When I saw that thing, I said, I'm never watching television. Why? Because if you're going to suggest what must go into my head, there's a danger. I need to control what so I use my computer for my TV. I have YouTube. You know what YouTube does for the church? YouTube gives you, when I got chased out of the church, the place where I was, my theology thing, I had nowhere to go. And so what I had to do is, I had to go back and ask questions. What did I learn there? What were the teachings that I had there? Because now I have a conflict. The man who is teaching right at the stage, I think I told you what he was saying on the last couple of episodes. He said, there is a point of your spiritual growth where a Christian doesn't need Jesus. You are so spiritually matured that you grow to a point where you don't need Jesus. And I said, something is wrong there, and I questioned it. And the next couple of messages went on to address the disobedience of Ricky. I said, okay, it's fine. Now, what happened? Why did I question it and the others didn't? By the way, that church is still running right now. All the members that started with that church are gone. Unfortunately, they only left last year, you know, and stuff like that. I saw this 7 years ago, and I left. Why? I went with this. I came alone with my head. You are not going to tell me to leave my conscious thinking at the door. So that's the first thing you need. You need to ask questions. I told you last time on the last episode, I didn't even believe my mother when she told me to come to church. I was like, why? Why should I come? Unless you can show me why I should come. Now, this is the danger. As you hear what he has just been saying. The danger is it when you say the religion of the Pharisees. The Pharisees, what they did is, when you read the Old Testament, as we explained, you don't get to see this idea of Pharisees, whatnots, and stuff like that, right? So you wonder, where does that come from? You had a system called the Sovereign. They came up after the Jews came out of Babylon. And so this was an organized group of individuals that were meant to organize Judaism in a particular block. Pharisees, you're concerned with the temple. That's why they're very obsessed about that. And if you went out of what the Pharisees taught, you were chucked out of the temple. Blind Bartimaeus is an example of that. So how did they rule it? By fear. Now remember that example that I gave? Where does fear rule? Fear rules in the subconscious. Why? Because fear does not deal with what I'm seeing. Fear deals with what I know. If I can challenge, touch not my anointed. And I say it with a bass, do my prophets no harm. All of a sudden you got fear. I can ask him a question. I cannot challenge him when he's wrong about something. I cannot test what he's telling me to do. We have a problem. Yeah. So what has happened over the church over these years is that people have been told you have to take off this part of your brain when you enter the church and come with your everything. That the danger with the African church is this: spiritualism. Africa is very spiritual. Everything with Africans is spiritual. If you cross, I was told that if you cross, like if you found water and you suspected that it was pee, you had to go around it. Because if you cross it, you better not make the mistake, because you might pee when you go to bed. You were told not to. Africans are very spiritualists. So when you approach spiritualism and you come into church, guess what they told you? I was talking to a brother. I know he's watching. Otzi, I love you big time. But I have to speak up. I have to speak about it. He was telling me about some spiritualist stuff that scared me to my bones. First of all, he approaches things like doctrine. No, there must be a certain way. The angels must visit you and tell you about certain doctrines. And I said, where do you get that in the Bible? So what has happened? They have put spirituality within church by saying, no, you have to examine this from the spiritual perspective. But wait, I have the Bible that tells me that you're wrong. So what has the religion of the Pharisees done over the years from the period of the Jews? So remember the Sopharians? They control the Jews. When you come into the Christian church, as he mentioned, you have the Roman Catholic Church trying to muzzle people not having the Bible in their own homes. What is that? Capture state. Okay. So the Jews were captured. You think Jesus is the Messiah? You can't come in here. You get out. When you come into the period of the Roman Catholics, if you think that Martin Luther's and them are right, the John Husses and all of those guys, you can't come in here. Yeah. We're going to bang you at the stake, as a matter of fact. And so what happened is that over that period, the capture never stopped. It went from the Jews, it came into the church, and right now we have the mafia state as he's talking about it. And the danger of the mafia state is that it seeks to prey on spirituality of the African mind. They have spiritualized water. They have spiritualized clothes. A cloth. I was looking for a prayer cloth. I'm sorry. I was looking for a prayer shawl, the Jewish prayer shawl. I wanted it for my church. It was being sold for 1,700 at this other church. And I went online, it's 600. Yeah. What is that? They've made it a spiritual house. And that is the very thing that Jesus fought them for. My house will not be a house of salesmen.